How is everyone today? Okay. Although this is primarily for parents of young children, it's actually something that we all can learn from. So if you are a parent, put the ages of your children into the chat. And that would be a great asset for me to actually look at. Okay. And meanwhile, hello, everyone. And I'm going to share my screen for 1 second, just so you know that we're talking about today debunking 3 common parenting myths with mind-blowing facts you've never heard before. Now, when I was growing up, which is a long time ago, these myths were definitely believed by parents. There was, and you'll see that as we go along, that people did what I'm going to talk about and are still doing. And I'm hoping to give insight so that we can grow in our effectiveness in being parents of young children. Okay, so I'm going to take it off here. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I began my journey as an educator in the field of early childhood in the 70s. Yeah, it's a long time ago. The 70s was if you remember, was a radical time of change and new knowledge and questioning things, etc. And I was blessed because one of the first jobs that I ever had was teaching in an early childhood children's center at a college. And the interesting thing about it was a parent co-op. Now, I say parent because that's the key here. The parents were students in the school. They weren't faculty, they were students. And part of having this co-op was to have the parents learn how to run a business. So they did all the administrative work and they hired. They hired the director. At that time, I wasn't there yet when it first opened, but I came 2 years later. They had to choose a director, and they chose someone who it was an incredible person. She was, and she's actually my mentor, Rena Rice. She graduated from Bank Street College, which is world renowned for early childhood. It's just a master's program. And they have a particular approach that they work with children, how they develop and how they grow. And it's called the Bank Street approach. And basically what the Bank Street approach is, follows a developmentally appropriate practice. What does that mean? It means meeting your child where they're at, understanding where they're at, knowing where they're at, and then moving them forward. Okay, so this was an interesting time because at that time, that was very sophisticated to have that kind of information. In the 70s, those of us that worked with young children were considered babysitters. You know, oh, I'm dropping them off at daycare, or I'm dropping them off at that program. We were caregivers. No one knew the knowledge that you needed to have to work with little ones. There's a reason for that. I'll tell you in a minute. I was a president of a citywide association, and we had a sweatshirt, and our logo was, I'm not a babysitter. I haven't sat on a baby yet. So that was a joke, obviously, but really what it meant was that we're misunderstood. Okay. We aren't babysitters. We have to service our families in the best possible version. And I was blessed to have that taught to me. And I learned it through my years working at Kingsborough. It was actually Kingsborough Community College. And I also later on taught courses there in early childhood. So I'm very, very connected to them. Okay, so now I will I'll share my screen. And here we are. We're going to debunk 3 common myths. Now, let me just go back because I don't have it on gallery, I don't think. Yeah, I do, but Kahida, you're not in my, all right, let's just go. Share screen. I only see Jen. Do you see the screen, 𝗗𝗢𝗘𝗦𝗧?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. I guess you each have to talk. All right. Uh, okay. Wait 1 minute. Oh, all right. There you are. I moved things over. All right. So to do this, okay, to do this removal of the myths for parents who might be more used to the traditional way of raising children, it can lead to doubt and confusion. Well, what are you saying? You know, I mean, I remember how I was raised, and often people go back to the way they were raised, and that's how they raise their children. And that might be fine, but there's awareness we're going to create today, right? The other thing is it can lead to unnecessary stress because you might have to change your mindset a little bit, but that's how we grow. So when you know, then why, then you know how, okay? Once you know why we're going to make these changes, hopefully you'll be able to apply it in your parenting to raise resilient children. Okay. The first myth is effective parenting doesn't, that's in red, require self-reflection. Why this myth exists. Okay, so there are traditional beliefs that parenting is an instinctual role that doesn't require personal introspection. Okay, by doing so, I mean, that doesn't so much apply today because a lot of people are on a journey of reflecting and transforming. However, in those days, if you didn't follow the parenting, skills of your own parents, if you went against that, you might feel weak. You might feel like, oh, you know what, that's not good enough. What I know, what my parents told me isn't good enough. But today, we all need to do some self-reflection, whether it's just a transformation for yourself or before you begin your parenting journey. So taking time for self-reflection is unnecessary or impossible. I kind of believe that it is necessary and very possible. Do you agree? Raise your hand. Okay. So in today's world, with everything that's going on, we need to find out where we fit, what we want, what triggers us in both our personal lives and very much so in this wonderful journey of parenting. The other thing is the fast-paced nature of modern life, coupled with societal expectations, often prioritize external actions over internal actions. What does that mean? Well, we're so busy working, taking care of our family, doing whatever it is that we have to do to be successful, that people often don't think they have the time. You have to make that time. You're important. Parents are important. To do their job effectively, they need to have self-care. And part of that is to reflect. Okay. So these are some tips I have that I'm sharing with you on self-reflection. The first one you see here is someone journaling. Now, many of you might be journaling, and you might be journaling about your personal journey. That's great. You could also have a parent journal. And what would you write in your parent journal? You might write your thoughts about your day, your wins for the day. Oh, wow, my baby slept for the first time, and or something that you're struggling with, you know, and trying to figure out why this is happening. Or just wonderful moments and observations that you might have through the day. Yeah, she's writing in a book. That's one way to journal. I use my phone. I have a little notes section, you know, in my iPhone, and I have mine is my journal, my parent journal, well, my personal journal. I'm still a parent and I could still journal about them. They're adults. And I do actually, I use my phone because I like to just talk a little bit. If I were to start writing, I might write a book, uh, which isn't a bad idea. And Jen is, I know, I'm so excited. But at the same time, I get right to the point when I talk on my phone. My list, bump, 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 and it's done. Okay. What are other self-reflections? Mindful practice. Does anyone want to share anything they do for mindful practice besides meditating? Okay. One of the other very important things to do is to learn how to breathe. Breathing, deep breathing. Okay. So when you're stressed and you take a moment to breathe, I feel better. Uh, it makes a difference. So take that moment for yourself. Do it. Do it when times come up in your life, not only with your children, but generally speaking. It's also a great idea to set aside quiet time. Okay. Chill. Take a walk. Gaze out a window. Just relax. Take that time. You deserve it. Okay. And the other one is seek feedback. Right. So, who do you seek feedback from? Certainly not someone whose advice you don't particularly like, but you certainly can find, hopefully, a good friend who supports you and understands, another friend that's a parent and you're going through it together. And you talk and you share. A trusted parent in that vein. A group. There are so many groups on social media. We'll talk about that later. Or you can hire a coach. So by incorporating self-reflection into your daily routine, you could become a more mindful and effective parent. Okay, you'll go to the next. All right, eyes are, yeah, okay. So what is the importance of self-reflection in parenting? Number one is personal growth. Again, does anyone want to, through reflection, has anyone had a personal growth that they would like to share? Something you gained? Okay. My personal growth uh, was to learn deep breathing. And I say that because I am a very reactive person. Because you could see, I talk my hands, I'm very emotional. And that could bring me into lots of situations. If I react first, it may not be positive. If my child is doing something and I just react, that's not the way I want to parent. So I learned how to step back, breathe. When I do that step back and breathing, gives me a moment to come up with a plan. I mean, they come intuitively after you learn what they are. And I get my plan and then I proceed. Okay, so how does that strengthen relationships? Well, at least I'm not yelling at my kids where I wasn't, or I tried not to, because we're all human. We have to remember that. And instead of, if they're doing something, instead of saying, stop, don't do that, I will breathe. And I will come up with a plan of why and steps that we can work together through to help them see and change their behavior, which goes down to helping enhancing problem solving. Once your child trusts you, that you will give them space and you're not just reacting to them. Of course, it heightens your relationship with them in a positive way. Therefore, it gives you an opportunity to enhance the problem solving together. And if you do 1, 2, and 3, you certainly will reduce your stress. And that's what it's all about. Life is stressful. Parenting is stressful. Finding ways to negate that is what it's all about. Okay. Any questions about our first myth? Good. All right. All right. Here comes our second myth. Myth number 2. All children can be treated equally. Now, keep in mind, I'm talking about parents, but I'm really focusing on birth to 5 years old. That's my specialty. Okay. I'll talk about that after too. So desire for simplicity in parenting is why maybe people will treat their children equally. Now, that's obviously fits for if you have more than one child, obviously. And I can tell you this myth is what happened when I was growing up. Okay. My mom and dad had 4 kids. And cultural or societal norm in those days was that there's a universal rule for everything, and whether this child does it or that child does it, we're going to treat them all the same because that's what you're supposed to do. We know now that's not true, and we're going to get into why in a little bit. And the other part is lack of awareness or understanding. What do I mean by that? Okay. So how could you actually change your behavior or understand where your children are at unless you know something about child development? Okay. No, I'm not suggesting you go back to school, to college to learn about child development, but I am suggesting to know that children develop according to milestones. Okay. And milestones serve over a period of time. So by 6 months or so, children should be able, and they have charts with lists. But the careful thing you need to do is find the right resources. If you're going to do this on your own, you can use books. You can go join groups. You can go to webinars on this, but you want to make sure that the information you're getting is based on research from someone who knows from either lots of experience, some education, and they know what they're pretty big, pretty not necessarily known in their field, but known in some field, which I've won some awards for my program. So I feel validated to be able to share this because it's all up here for the last 40 plus years. So you can look in the internet, be very careful. I have some resources at the end that are good suggestions for this journey if you want to learn about child development. That is taught in my course, but you can do it on your own. So let's move on. Okay, so what is the importance of understanding individual child's differences? You can personalize their learning and their development. Okay, so what does that mean? That means once you know and you've studied where your children are, you would recognize their uniqueness, their interests, and their learning styles. That's what the observation is about. You observe, I'm going to tell you how to do that after, but you want to know their unique learning styles. Once you do, again, it goes back to what I was saying even earlier, it enhances emotional support. Okay, the children are like these little children. Wow, you get me, mom. You could have one child who's all in the head, you know, and you could have another child who's very physical. Okay, and how they learn is very close to how they are, the best way to do it. And then you could strategically help them in guiding their behavior. Now, when I mean by guiding behavior, some people call it discipline, but I don't. I believe parents are guiding children's behavior. And I'm going to give you some examples of how to do that in a positive way, and not a reactive way. Okay. So, tips on tailoring parenting strategies. These are just a few tips just to get you some meat of what is possible. Observe and listen. As you can see, she's making eye contact and she's talking. But you could also sit 5 minutes on the side and we're talking about your journal and observe and listen to how they play. What do they say? How's their language developing? How are they, do they fit into the milestones that you're going to learn about? So active listening, that's a very important key. And once you do that, you have to adapt your communication styles. What do I mean by that? Okay. So for a child who's very quiet and gentle, you would want to give them gentle guidance, okay? And be very careful about their emotions. But you also can have a child who is very strong-willed and they need more direct instructions. I mean, some kids you could just say 2 words to and they get it, and others you have to have a little bit more planned, okay? Which leads to the flexible tools for guiding behavior. So how you guide behavior is totally based on your child's personality. Now, it becomes intuitive if you believe this, okay? If it's not one size fits all, these are the keys, these are the strategies you have to use to personalize, to meet their individual needs and not treat them all the same. I could see, my parents saying, but why are you doing that? I treat you all the same. Why do you feel like you're picked on? Well, maybe I needed something different. I did. And I found my way. I was a middle child, by the way, and they have a lot of things they have to live with. Okay. So this is myth number 3. Knowledge of child development isn't necessary for raising young children. Now, this is my forte. This is my specialty. This is my passion. Why this myth exists. Okay. So again, it's always based, that's what the myths are based on. Rely on intuition or ways they were raised, believing that natural instincts are sufficient. And we know what that leads to. It doesn't accommodate all the uniqueness of all children. So when you just rely on that, it's going to be a limited experience. The wealth of conflicting advice available can make it overwhelming to sift through credible information regarding child development. And this is where, again, be very careful when you go online to find resources, because knowing about child development is the key. Okay. And sometimes when you start experimenting with it, you might get some reactions like, uh, is that your favorite child? Why are you always like, talking to them when they're, why are you always understanding what they're doing? I mean, you're doing something wrong. It's wrong. It doesn't have to be that way. Now, I'm talking probably a lot from my culture, very emotional and Italian. And, there is a lot of loudness with Italians that can come off like we're mad, but really, we all know that every parent loves their child. Every parent is human. Every parent has to give themselves grace, and does not have to be perfect. It's a journey. We make mistakes. I make them a lot. As a result of the Okay, so as a result, parents might feel that learning about child development is an unnecessary and daunting task. So I'm here to tell you that I believe it is necessary, whether you do it on your own, and you can, or you get support, but that would make it a little bit more daunting. If you join a very reliable resource like myself, you would be getting all this in very gentle fashion. Okay. Okay. Benefits of understanding child developmental stages. So this is where you get down a little bit to the nitty-gritty. You make informed decisions. Okay. Now parents are making decisions all the time, and not every time are they informed. But your chances of making more informed parenting decisions is big. Now I want to tell you a story about this particular number one. So after I left my job at the college, I opened up my own program in my neighborhood that served the community with the same approach I was using where I worked. I I definitely kept the parents in mind. They were a very big part. Parent involvement was huge, and I respect parents, and I work very closely with my parents, unlike other programs where you might not have a parent conference, or it might be talking about academic things. We've discussed all of this in my parent conferences. They were very long, and the parents loved it. Okay, so was a new parent. And she came into the program with her little, almost 3-year-old, adorable, sweet little girl. And the mom said to me, "My daughter is brilliant. She's brilliant." I said, "Oh, thanks for sharing." And I'm smiling. And she said she knows every letter and every number. Okay, these are symbols between, letters are symbols, numbers are symbols. She knows them all. I said, "Great, all right. It's good to know." So we talked, and she came to the program, and she came in very, very nervous. Okay, this was her first experience, of course, being away from her mom, and where she was getting lots of flashcards to help her learning. So she was very, nervous and shy. I hate to use that word. Anyway, that clicked in right away. And of course, we're going to do the best, as we always do, to assimilate her into the classroom. Took her under my wing. And, and in my program, children learn by doing. Okay. Parents used to ask me, "What do you teach?" And my answer to that is, it's not so much what I teach, it's what the children learn. It's all about learning and learning through play. Okay. And this goes for parenting too, because the toys we spend millions of dollars on, you know, can make a difference in your child learning, or just pacifying time, or just, I mean, the money people spend on, iPads and things like that could be much better spent. We'll talk about that, you know, another time. But their center set up. Children choose. They know the rules in every center, and this, that, and the other thing. So that's a program. I'm going to talk to you later how that can be improvised, not a program, but some of the ideas into your home. Okay. So after a little while, she became herself and she loved school. I mean, she was putting herself into every center. She made friends. She was happy. Her mother was so happy that she loved school. 2 or 3 months later, she came back to me and she said, Joan, um, what's going on? And I said, what do you mean? As far as I know, Gabriella loves school. She says, yeah, but she forgot everything she learned. So I said, I knew what she meant, but I asked her, what do you mean? She doesn't know her alphabet anymore. She doesn't know the numbers. So I said to her, tell me something. Do you know your alphabet? Of course. She said, yes. I said, did you forget it? And she said, no. Did you forget it when you learned it? No. Well, that's because you were ready. A 3-year-old isn't ready for symbols yet. Anyway, um, if they don't stay with you, that means it wasn't appropriate. I might have not used that word. I'm very particular how I speak to parents, obviously, but I wanted to let her know that I appreciate how much and what she must feel to want her child to succeed. How do you know how to do that? You want your child to read, you read to them. You tell stories with them. Okay. And you involve them in experiences, cooking and shopping and talking and learning. Children learn through play. That's my philosophy. And and then, she stopped and she looked at me and she remembered how happy her child was and thanked me. So it just reinforced what I know. And then I work with her very closely. And I do that with my parents. We have workshops, we have parent coffees, etc. So it helps you making parenting decisions. Okay. She was not ready for that in her milestones, if you read them. Okay. But what is good about learning about milestones is early identification of issues. Okay. So parents worry. They worry. They see things that they're supposed to be doing. They want them to do it like at 12 months, you should be like taking your first steps, or you should be, doing this, knowing your name or recognizing this. At 12 months, they expect them to walk. Some children walk before 12 months. Well, I have another story, another parent I was working with and coaching, and she was like beside herself because her child wasn't walking. So he wasn't walking. She talked to the pediatrician who tried to comfort her. She wanted to go to a physical therapist. She came to me and we talked. And I said to her, and after some coaching, we got down to what was triggering her to make her so stressed. Her friend, her good friend's child was walking at 12 months, his playmate. And there you go. You're comparing. Parents, they look around. They want their child to be successful. I get it. But children grow according to their own pace. In order to walk, your large muscles have to be strong. If you can't stand yet on your own, you're certainly not going to be able to walk. But he crawled, he interacted, he played with his toys. And we spoke about toys together, and that'll come a little bit later. But yet, if you're 15 months old, your child is 15 months old, and they're still not walking, and they're not interacting, and they're not doing some of the things that are expected during that milestone period, you'll know that's a red flag. Okay. Some parents keep making excuses for why their child doesn't do this and why their child doesn't do that. And if you have a child with special needs, they will be showing you. If you know about milestones, they will be showing you they're not meeting them. And isn't it great to learn when they're young? Because today, as we learn from brain research, that most of the 3/4 of the brain is formed by the time you're 5. Okay. So there's millions of neurons there that might not be working okay. But early intervention, which we have today, which we didn't have back in the day, is amazing because you can catch the children when they're still connecting, when those neurons are still connecting, and with speech therapy, physical therapy, speech and language, all sorts of interventions that's free for people today are at your service or at your access. You can access them. And your pediatrician, in the old days, they didn't even know about this. I recommended more children for early intervention than pediatricians did, because of my knowledge. But today, your pediatrician can help you with that, and they'll guide you. Okay. And of course, when you make informed parenting decisions, you enhance communication. You want to foster a good parent-child relationship, and it becomes that way when you're conscious of the decisions you're making and the effect it has on your children. You're not just reacting. Are your children going to trust you more? Yes. Are they going to feel good about themselves? Yes, because that's part of what you do. So again, does it reduce parental anxiety? Well, like I said, do 1, 2, 3, and it will be reduced. I guarantee it. Okay, so equipped with knowledge, parents can create a nurturing environment that supports their child's physical, emotional, social, and intellectual growth. And that's what it's all about. It's all those. Okay. Any questions? Are you with me? Yeah. Raise your hand. Does it make sense? Thank you. All right. So I'm going to give you a couple of steps, 5, to implement with children up to 5 years old. The first one is create a developmentally appropriate routine. Now, that doesn't mean, I'm not talking about routines about sleeping, eating. That's another story, and you do that when they're babies. And but where I'm talking about a developmentally appropriate routine, which includes physical, cognitive, and rest. Okay, so children should have physical, cognitive, and rest period consciously every day. So what do I mean? You're not going to teach a lesson for cognitive. What could be a cognitive activity or routine with your child? Eating. Okay, they can be on their high chair with their plate in front of them. And you talk about the food. Oh, let's see. Do you remember what we call this? And if they don't, you give them the name of the vegetable. This is a carrot. I wonder what color it is. Of course, all of this has to be developmentally appropriate. You're going to talk differently to a 2-year-old than you are to a 4-year-old. I'm just giving you simple kinds of things you could do with little ones. And they love that. Physically, going out for walks, collecting things together. And then you could bring it into a cognitive by gathering different things, leaves, acorns, all different things, and then categorizing them with older ones. My grandchild cannot do anything unless there's an order to it. Little OCD going on there. Very bright. But even when he starts with his, his markers when he's coloring, they have to be in an order from dark to light or whatever. And I say this because that's if he would have brought a bunch of stuff in, he would categorize them. And it's just something that children can naturally do. But in the beginning, you can introduce them to that. And rest. Most children up to 4 years old do take a nap. So that's where the rest comes in. But if not, they have to have quiet time. And that doesn't mean watching the TV. But like I said, most do take a nap. Age appropriate toys and activities. So again, according to the age of your child, you want to have appropriate things available. Simply, I'm not going to go into it deep, but you wouldn't give a puzzle to an infant, obviously. An infant, you would give sensory toys, things they can put in their mouth, and explore. They love to do that. The mouth is how they're learning. Okay. For an older child, a 2-year-old, that's where like the puzzles come, and the little, starting from easy ones to harder ones, and that's great for taking apart and putting together and seeing how they're able to do that, and it gives them great satisfaction when they complete it, and they get to see, wow, this isn't here, and now it is. They created something. And for preschool children, I incredibly highly recommend imaginative toys. What I mean by that is any toy where in and of itself, it isn't anything, it's what you do with it. Like, for example, blocks. I happen to love wooden blocks. You can get little sets of them, but any kinds of blocks. That is open to creativity. All right. Little ones are going to stack them, they're going to fall, and older children will create. We want children to use their minds. You want to have dress up. You want to have dress up stuff. You want to engage in interactive play with them. So that's how you scaffold their learning to the next level. So if a child is playing with blocks and they're old enough where you can show them how a bridge is made, that's okay. If they can do it, they will. And that will give, and because you're the adult or the person scaffolding, you're allowed to introduce. You don't say, of course you don't, make this, but you do it next to them and say, wow, look at this. Would you like to try? And if they can't do it, they're not ready. Okay. And that's how you go back and forth. Always wanting to give them positive reinforcement. But that interactive play, you can do all that cognitive and physical things, all in interactive play with children. So my grandson got me into playing store with him. Okay. He's the storekeeper, I'm the customer. Now, before I lived here, because I'm only here a short time, a year or so, and he's 8, but I used to come 4 or 5 times a year to see my baby. I was working. I couldn't, so I would come for every occasion, including his birthday. So every time I came, from when he was like almost 4, he wanted to play store. And of course, I relieved his parents by having to be the customer. So that's what I did. And that's what I do now. But in the beginning, he used to just put things around and say, and we didn't really even have pretend money, but give me $500, and I would pretend to give him $500. As he got older, I would suggest, wow, and he had play money. And I said, okay, give me some money. And he knew what it was worth. So he'd give me singles and $5 bills and $20 bills. And I said, okay, so now when you set up your store, because he always had to set it up, think about, first of all, I need a label. That's what I do now. I didn't always do that though. I need to know what the toy is and how much it cost. Okay. So he would take and mostly they were dinosaurs and trucks with him. And some stuffed animals, because he adores stuffed animals. So I'd have to wait. He was very particular, and then I'd come into the store with my money. And I'd look around and we would converse, and I would use that time just to chat with him. And I said, is there anything you could recommend? And, he'd be so excited to wait. And then I would pick something up and it would say $20. So if it was the first time I was playing with him, I would probably give him 20 singles. Okay, but because I know he's older and I want to challenge, I give him 4 5s. That's how you make it progressively harder. Because you don't just give the money to the storekeeper. As I told him, you have to count it to make sure I'm not cheating you, right? So that's how you get the math in. You're not just giving money, throws it in the thing. No. How do you know I'm not, that I'm right? I want to make sure you should want to make sure anyway. So I knew he was, numbers are his thing. So he could. So he would go 5, 10, 15, 20. Yay! So now he's counting by 5s and he feels so proud of himself and he puts it away. And this is how you can progress playing with your child as parents. And this was in the house. This is in the house. Uh, and there's no way that I get out of not playing store with him when I'm there. So you want to engage in interactive play, and that scaffolds their learning. And you want to monitor and adjust interactions, and that is what I was explaining with how you pay, whether you use money, etc., etc. Okay. All right, next. All right. Okay, as I said, these are recommended resources I have for you. When I tell you, these are the best of the best. I've done a lot of research and I've learned from the theorists. These aren't theorists, these are books for parents. Okay, I learned through incredible theorists such as 𝗗𝗢𝗘𝗦𝗡𝗧. You might not know who they are, but they were studying children, serving young children, and they had theories about how children learned. And that's what people like myself used in a good program. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but these are wonderful books. Barry Brazelton, he actually has an institute, it's online. He's not alive anymore, but I actually knew of him when he was alive and sat in on one of his Zoom meetings, one of his virtual meetings. And he was just so loving and kind and tender. I just, he was a pediatrician. I mean, I wish I had him for a pediatrician. He wrote this Touch Points is a 2-book collection. And there's one on infant to 3 and one from 3 to 6. You might want to screenshot this. I give this collection to every mother I know that's pregnant and having, and father that's pregnant. They have a baby shower. This is what they get from me. He's got other books that are just fabulous. And David Elkind is like the king of the power of play, learning what comes naturally. Okay, that's another whole masterclass in itself. My deep passion about children learning through play, why it's important, how children learn when they're that young. Okay, there's no sitting and writing, which, by the way, I'll throw this in as very interesting. I had a program, and there was a caregiver in my neighborhood who watched other people's children, but she took 3-year-olds and had them doing Rexos. So they had homework and sent it home with their parents. They're 3. And I heard from one of my parents who could not believe it, but she did come back and share with me. Do you know that this person said, you don't teach the kids? She, of course, knows my philosophy. And that's what she does. She's got ABCs written on her sign and, this kind of thing. Now, you can't tell someone who's not willing to learn that that's not what you do with 3-year-olds. Sorry, that's not, their muscles aren't there. It has no meaning to them. But my parents got a kick out of that because she made her families think that they were doing the right thing. Fine, I'm sure she was lovely. But where would you rather your child be? In a place that was doing inappropriate kinds of things, not harmful, no hurting or anything like that, but not fun. I mean, if I see 4-year-old or a 5-year-old who's not writing, who doesn't choose to do that, I think their small muscles need work. So do I say, here, take this and practice? No, I have the knowledge, and I would be sharing that more of that, of this child needs to build up those small muscles. Let's get that Play-Doh going. Let's get those pegs going, the pegboards, right? Eye-hand coordination, building up those muscles. There are reasons that children don't choose to do. They usually do what they're best at, with their body. Those are the kinds of things they're going to choose. As an educator, though, it was my responsibility to spread their wings. And that's how I did it, observing, etc. And learning through play. That is the key. In fact, all right, I won't even go. Websites right here. These are the best websites you can go to in early childhood. 0 to 3 is amazing, world-renowned, by all research-based, by prominent people. NEEYC is an organization that you could join as an educator or a parent, and I've actually presented at conferences all around the country when I was an educator. They have a magazine and they have all kinds of resources. The CDC is also, it's a government agency, and they put out the best milestone chart. Okay, because you're going to find a lot of people that are, selling things online, and they have milestone charts. And if you really want to delve into learning about how children learn, you need to go to 0 to 3 or the CDC, and it's not a chart. It's pages of fun pages and videos of how children learn. And you know what? The videos they play are definitely developmentally appropriate. I would never recommend to any person I speak to that doesn't do things in what I call, and what is known as research-based, developmentally appropriate. To me, flashcards are not developmentally appropriate for children under 4. Okay, so great resources these are. Okay, all right, so we're up to the call to action, but before that, I want to stop my share. Hi. I hope you found this very interesting. I enjoyed presenting to you because working with parents and young children is my passion, and always has been. There's a phrase that I share. Some people, many people, work to live. You have to work, you need the money to live. I lived to work. Okay. I loved what I was doing for my 40+ years, more than I could tell you. It was the best part of my life, serving, working with families and children. And I've met and worked with hundreds of parents through the years, and we work things together. I was always an ear they can come to. I've coached parents, I've coached actually teachers in the same way, because teachers of young children have to remember that children learn through play, and they actually needed coaching for that, especially today. the schools, everybody thinks, oh, I want to teach in pre-K. I want to teach in pre-K because it's, I don't have to do anything. And what they do is they bring their fifth grade mentality into the pre-K and get no results. And then saying, well, now what do I do? Now what do I do? And I went into one classroom and I was actually there for the very first day of school, the first week where the children were there, not their little orientation period. And she was from second grade and she thought she wanted to be with the young ones. And she said to them, okay, line up. And they all look at her. Line up? What is she talking about, line up? When the kids have to line up to go out and do something. She looked at me and said, they don't understand what you're talking about. They don't line up, or at least they don't know how. Once they learn, which is probably something you could, if they expect you to walk in a line when you're in the hallway, you will show them how. But to a second grade, you just have to say, line up, and the kids line up. But that was such an awareness to her. Oh no, what else am I going to have to do to meet the children where they're at? And she had great instincts. But you know what? It takes a unique person to be an early childhood person because you're not teaching subjects. You're teaching them indirectly through life, through learning, through play. And it's easy to teach history, but there is a difference between a good teacher and a not good teacher. But it's much easier to have them enjoy it and love it. And when you have information, as I'm sharing with you today, parenting will be a much more feasible, positive experience. So why am I doing a parent coach now? Because like I said, I live to work. Well, anyway, COVID came and the job, I was the epitome of my career because I was working for the college that I admired being as a coach. I had finished, my other career moves, and it was like I was older, so I couldn't sit with children anymore. I knew when I had to get out of the classroom when I used to say, okay, kids, come help Joni up, and they'd all come in and, they helped me get up from the floor because I always sat on the floor when I was with the kids. And so, yes, I was leaning, I left. That's one of the reasons I left, closed my program. And it was also a result from Sandy. So I had no choice, actually, but it was a good time. So, and I went on another journey. Anyway, in this journey, it was like the epitome. So when COVID came, like everyone else, I was depressed. I felt my passion was just taken from me. The grant had to stop. And we all stopped, right? We stopped. And we were in this situation of not knowing and being alone or with partner, and hopefully it was a good one. It's the first time you really might get challenged about who you're with and who you want to spend your time with. That's one of the things. And the other thing is you're not seeing anyone. So a year went by and I'm like, I was in a depression. So I went to therapy and I thought, I have to make changes here. I have to change. I have to do something drastic. I have to make a change. And when I finally, did a lot of work, I decided I was going to move. And I decided to sell my house, which my children grew up in, and we lived for 40 years. And I moved cross country to where my sons live. And now I live near them and my grandchild. I started anew. And when I moved here, okay, so I'm not going to go into my manifestation. I don't want to go over time too much, but another time I'll share it. But when I moved here, could tell you, my son found me a home. And when I stepped into it, I felt peaceful. And I knew something new was going to happen to me. So I joined the mastermind program and I decided I'm going to share my knowledge. I'm going to give back for all the wonderful things that were given to me for those years that I was working. So I do this with love, passion, compassion, and service, and just wanted to share that. Yeah, so let's just go back to when I'm hoping to that you might be interested. I would love for you to schedule a free call for a personal free consultation. Okay, I would love to talk to any parent, um, who is searching or just wants guidance and wants to participate in an evolution, a transformation in their parenting journey. It's an important journey. It's hard, but again, we're all human and we make mistakes. But I'm here for you. There's this phone number that you can call. Oh, maybe I should put that in the chat. I don't know how. I say, can I copy? Copy. How do I go back? I have to go back to the chat. I'll put it in when I get it. Should have done it earlier. All right. Anyway, that's because you can't click it here. You'd have to cut and paste and put it up, search, and you can find my calendar. At the same time, for things for if you want to look me up, this is my website, my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm here. Call me. I'd love to talk to you. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye. Okay. Stop sharing. All righty.